Elsewhere in the Nations League, Ireland bounced back from the 4-0 defeat to Slovenia by putting 4 past Greece. I mean, what a way to respond, Rach. All 4 goals coming in the second half. Pretty big from them.
Yeah, I think much needed as well. Like, it wasn't a good first half. And I can understand that. Like, there is a period of finding your feet under a new manager, dealing with the Wales loss, having a few players out that would normally be quite key players. Carla Ward finding her feet in international football. And also factor in that, like, there just seems to be so much pressure on the team and expectation. And, like, when things aren't perfect, they get a real hammering. So all of that to contend with. And then they start the first half and it's a bit like, oh, Jesus Christ, like, here we go again. Is this going to be another struggle? You know, struggling to create and just looking a bit like when the other team attack. And I think Greece did look good coming forward in the first half. So to have that second half the way they did, there was a number of substitutions. And, you know, maybe that was the reason. Maybe the fact that they brought on your Katie McCabe's and Marissa Shiva and players like that, maybe that did have an impact. But equally, I'd like to think that there could be an element of things maybe just clicking a bit as well, I hope, because in those situations that sometimes you just need a game where it clicks, the goals go in, you kind of shake the monkey off your back. You're like, okay, we've got this. We know what we're doing, guys. And I think I'm hoping that half was a little bit of that, as opposed to it just being about the players that came on, because some of those players that were involved in that game are not available tonight. So that's a little bit stressful.
I mean, who do you think really stood out for you? You mentioned a couple of players sort of coming off the bench and making a real impact. Amber Barrett obviously got that goal, and that was her 50th cap for Ireland. I mean, she's got to be up there as a top contender, surely.
She's always been on the cusp in terms of like whether she's going to start or whether she comes off the bench. At the moment, I think she is a player that comes off the bench and she can have an impact as well, which I think is very important. You know, she scored that infamous goal that sent Ireland to the World Cup. But in pre-match, she was kind of saying, that's not all I want to be remembered for. Like, I want to be getting more goals.
That itself is enough.
But so few players actually have a moment where when you mention their name, you go, that. Yeah, remember that? She'll be a pub quiz answer in 50 years' time. Do you know what I mean? And I know many players don't want just that to be the thing they're remembered for, but it's a pretty incredible thing to have associated with yourself. Marissa Shiva, really impressed with, especially given, you know, we need people scoring goals, and especially given Kira Carusa, who's out with an injury, and Katie McCabe are not available, who were both involved, Kira Carusa scoring, Katie McCabe assisting. So it's important to know we've got other goal scorers in the squad, especially in this game. So I think, yeah, having her come on and score was great, and have goals spread out across the team as well. It was 4 different goal scorers, which I think is pretty important.
Jeez, I mean, not bad. I mean, this is everything you wanted, right?
Yeah, but I'm still like, I don't...
Not good enough.
But the last time Ireland were in League B, I was like, okay, grand, I'm going to win every game. But now I don't feel like that. I'm still like, great, 4-0. Like, can you do that again, please?
But
like,
what next?
Stressful. Yeah, and I think I find it really interesting speaking with international managers who've come from coaching in a league where you've got so much time with your squad and so much time to get your message and your style across and embed your style, to then becoming an international manager where you literally have them for 2 weeks every 2 months kind of time, and you've got like a couple of days before each match to try and get your ideas and your plans in place and through the players. And it just must be such a different style of coaching to suddenly have to condense everything you do and be like, okay, now go and do all of that. And, you know, understandably that takes time, and you're just given so little time in football.
I mean, you mentioned they're great. Obviously, they're playing Greece in the reverse fixture tonight. You're going to be there at the stadium, Rach. Do you think Ireland can kind of start on the front foot this time round, or do you think actually you're not too sure what's going to happen given the kind of topsy-turvy nature of some of the fixtures?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
I'd like to think they'll take the form of the second half into that first half and play with a bit of confidence, knowing that they can score goals. I asked Carla Ward about this, about the whole, you know, how do you
do you
manage
speak to
when
Carla
you play the
Ward
same team?
most weeks?
This is the pre-match presser.
Honestly, I feel like every week. So I spoke to Carla Ward about this actually last week. I feel like you said that at least the last 4 podcasts that we've had.
It was the pre-match presser where I asked a question in the pre-match presser about that managing of playing the same team and how you contend with the fact that the other team's probably going to have learned a lot. And she said preparing for Greece was actually quite tricky because in their previous 3 games, they'd set up differently every time.
Love that from them.
Well, yeah, so they're quite unpredictable. So I guess that's why the old adage where you're like, we only focus on ourselves and what we can control. But I do expect Greece to probably change things around a little bit.
Okay, so literally watch this space.
Basically, I don't know.
Right, elsewhere, Wales and Scotland both lost their fixtures and both are still winless in this Nations League campaign so far. Scotland's previous 2 losses against Austria and the Netherlands were quite narrow, but they were hammered 4-0 at home by Germany on Friday. Obviously going to be a really tough test for them tonight in the away fixture. How are they going to get a better result? I mean, it's been a difficult patch.
Look, I think they're in League A. This is what you kind of have to expect in League A. And I think particularly for Wales with the Euros coming up, they're going to be facing teams that are much higher up in the rankings and that are going to be tough teams to face. So I think a bit like how when Ireland went into League A, you knew what it was. If you got a point out of it, you're going to feel positive, right? Mm-hmm. Like getting any points, a draw, anything. Ireland obviously beating France, like surprised everybody. So I think for Wales and Scotland, they're going to be looking at how can they learn from the first leg? Can they improve the result from the first leg against whoever they've played? And I think as well, understanding that, understanding what it is. So not putting huge amount of pressure on themselves and not getting too low with the losses, because realistically, you're not expected to really get anything out of a lot of these games. So the fact that scorelines have been close, and that's what I took from when Ireland played in League A. I was like, do you know what? Like, we're a tough team to play. People don't assume it's going to be a walkover. We were unlucky in some games. I mean, Wales drew with Sweden, for example. They know that they can cause teams problems. And it's taken the moments, I guess, when they come. But I just think don't put loads of pressure on yourself and feel too down about how it's going, I think. That's what I'd say anyway.
100%. You mentioned there sort of Wales drawing with Sweden there. They obviously lost 1-0 to Italy and then suffered the 2-1 defeat to Denmark. But they did put in a very decent display, a very kind of confident display. I mean, for Wales, how valuable do you feel like it is facing a top nation like Denmark less than 100 days before their first major tournament? I mean, for me, it kind of feels like, yes, they've got that defeat, but they can also take credit from the fact that they've really shown up in the games that they have, put in decent performances, some really standout players for them. I mean, Rach, it feels positive. I mean, no one's expecting massive things from them in this Euros and coming up, but it does feel like they're really starting to find their feet on the basics for sure.
Well, it gives them confidence in terms of how they can trouble or worry the opposition, the top opposition. But you have to factor in as well what that does for opposition who are in a group with Wales in the Euros. They're going to be looking at those results going, okay, right, these aren't maybe the walkovers we were expecting. You know, there's often a team in a Euros group where you think, oh, they're going to probably come last. And I think that what we're seeing now is more and more of these teams who are maybe lower down the rankings, we saw it at the World Cup, are able to put up a battle and cause problems and make things really difficult for top nations. And I think
don't say Wales this. You know that Wales are playing the Lionesses in the last group stage fixture of the Euros. Don't start saying, well, they're the disruptors who are going to upset and unsettle things, right? It's just really unhelpful narratives.
You asked me about Wales and we're talking about Wales here. Oh, sorry. It's dreadful. No, I think it boosts their confidence. I think, in terms of knowing that I feel like it kind of, you big your chest up a little bit now when you go out on the pitch where you're like, I'm not afraid of you. Like, we can go out and absolutely challenge. And I think that's really key for going into a major tournament, because you don't want to be going into a major tournament getting absolutely battered in the lead up to it. And by teams maybe you should be doing better against and your confidence is rock bottom. So I think it will help them confidence wise. Okay. Like they belong. Do you know what I mean? Like it was the same with Ireland. Like they went to the World Cup and I think it was almost the reverse where they played really well in the World Cup and then went into League A, kind of had to deal with League A. And I think for Ireland, it was like, actually, we belong on the world stage. We're not the kind of whipping dog where people are like, oh, we're absolutely going to run over these guys. It's not an important game, etc. And I think that's where these teams and some of these results will start to allow them to feel we actually belong on the world stage and we can cause problems, and you just chip away at that.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, it's interesting. Obviously, Wales, like Scotland, are bottom of the group. They travel to Sweden this evening. But it doesn't always, it doesn't necessarily reflect the performances that they have put in. You know, it's like a kind of, like a Crystal Palace in the WSL. Kind of feels like, they're putting some solid performances, haven't always got the results. They've been really close to results and they could have nicked something had sort of luck been on their side. But talking ahead to the Euros, obviously a little bit of a blow for Wales ahead of that. Goal scorer Kerry Holland left the pitch on a stretcher stretcher after receiving treatment for close to 10 minutes. She was taken straight to hospital with her right leg in a protective boot. However, the FA of Wales have said the leg injury is not as serious as first feared. So from us at Upfront, really hope that that's not as serious and as a quick and speedy recovery. Rach, what are you going to say? Go on.
I thought it was good that the FA of Wales came out really quickly to kind of allay fears, because it just made me think. Do you remember Ciara Walsh in the World Cup? Where she went down to the Denmark game going, my knee, I've done my knee. And then we were all like, oh my God. And
We'd already started to write the article. We'd already started writing the article.
And then she came back going, the media made such a meal of that. And we were like, we could hear you shouting my knee on the pitch.
That took the piss.
It scared the shit out of everybody. So I'm hoping it's one of those where everyone went, oh my God, no. And actually she turns around and she's like, it's grand, just a bang.
I think as soon as you hear anything knee related, it does feel like it's anything knee, leg. Yeah, you start to think, oh God, this is game over. But yeah, it doesn't look like it's that bad.
I'm hoping it was more of a contact injury. When you look at the tackle, I'm hoping it's more that than like the ACL ones are always so innocuous and often not contact injuries. They're like the way a foot is planted or whatever. So I'm hoping it's just like a bang, that the immediate kind of like pain, and then it fades and it's like, oh no, okay, just a big bruise.
That's what you want, a clattering injury rather than anything else. Lastly, Tanya Oxtoby's Northern Ireland took only 1 point from Romania, but they now have 1 win, 1 draw and 1 loss, which means they're sitting second in the group. How can they take all 3 points when they host them tonight, Rach? Just looking ahead, so some of Tanya's comments there. She was saying, there are areas of our game where we're strong, that we can continue to move forward with, but there are areas of our game that we need to continue to develop. We know that second half performance wasn't good enough and we'll learn from it and get better. Go on. What are you thinking?
It's just trying to find the consistency, I think, in that team. And I think being able to be consistent across 90 minutes. Now, when they were trying to qualify, they had to play that 2-legged game. I remember going up to Northern Ireland and did like a day in the life with Tanya Oxtoby, and they ended up winning it to get to the next stage. But they played previously and like scraped a draw and just about got the draw, I think, with like a last minute goal. And then they won the second leg in extra time. So in their heads, they were like, right, we've done this before. We've drawn against a team, played them a week later and beaten them. So that will those kind of experiences are all little notches on your belt where you can say, I've been in this situation before and I know we can achieve. So I think they're good at kind of talking about the things they control. They're very much in that frame of mind. And they'll, I think, maybe draw on that kind of experience, because it's not a relatively inexperienced squad, but you've got such a variety of players who've played professional football and players who haven't. And I think it's getting that consistency across a squad that has been tricky for Northern Ireland.